Hugh Freeze is out of a job at Auburn, and for the folks out on the plains, thank God the mad science experiment has come to an end. Less than 3 years after moving off of Brian Harsin for having a droll offense, once again, the Tigers are looking for their next head coach to bring them to national prominence. And John Cohen and company have got to nail this hire. And we've been saying this for a while now, but with the constant change in the transfer portal and NIL, surging teams in the SEC, plus when you look at Texas and Oklahoma joining the party, the last thing John Cohen can do is miss this hire and become a bottom dweller of the SEC. So who are the top names to head out to Jordan-Hare? Well, let's break it all down. Welcome on into SEC Unfiltered. It's Cole Thompson here. Like the video, hit the ring notification. And War Eagle Nation, make sure you smash that subscribe button because we're talking about your Tigers, coaching searches, and transfer portal news daily. Download the podcast version of the show, wherever you get your podcast listening systems, and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. And as always, we're presented by FanDuel. Go visit FanDuel.com/SECU. Go ahead and make your bet on who you believe will be Auburn's next head coach. To $300 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. FanDuel.com/SECU. Auburn is hitting reset after bringing in Hugh Freeze. He had 3 years to fix the offense, and ultimately a 15-19 record, a 6-16 record in conference play did not get the job done. And the crazy part is Auburn had the resources to be a team that characterized itself as a legit threat in the conference. Back-to-back top 10 recruiting classes. Back-to-back top 15 transfer portal classes, really good coordinators, really solid four-star talent. And ultimately, they were close in a lot of games, but being close in year 3, it doesn't solve any problems. And you can blame officiating all you want, but ultimately, the lack of attention into detail and the overall ambient negative tone around teams when calls didn't go your way is a massive reflection on Hugh Freeze and who he is as a coach. And that was what the persona of the team decided to start looking like. And that's why they decided to lose games and not be able to come back, especially in multiple matchups against Georgia, against Kentucky, against Missouri, certainly against Texas A&M. And it was very clear that we had hit our ceiling when it came to Hugh Freeze. So we're starting fresh once again. I do want to point this out to Auburn fans. You're Auburn. Like, this is a good program. Stop acting like the woe is me card is just coming on out. You're a team that has proven in the years past we can compete for SEC titles. We can compete for national titles. As long as we have the right identity with the roster and the coaching staff, and it all is on the same page, we should be in every conversation to go to Atlanta, be in the hunt for the college football playoff, and certainly every few years feel like that we can take on over as a legit threat to hoist up the national title, which is why Auburn has such high expectations, and it's deserving because they've proven with lesser tier commodities that they can win. And that's something that you're going to try to get back to in this hire. So there are some non-negotiables I think that you have to have if you are Auburn's next head coach. Number one, proven leadership. At some capacity, you got to show me that you believe that you can take on over a program where the expectations are drastically high and you've done it at a lower tier level. Number two, the ability to self-recruit. You got to be able to not only land the right players in the portal and in recruiting, but also when it comes to coaching staffs. How much transfer moves have you seen in that standpoint? And number three, and probably most importantly, the ability to adapt. This league is constantly changing. And if you're not able to do those things, then unfortunately, it's going to eat you alive. And that's what happened with Hugh Freeze, who was running an offense in 2025 that was still predicated in 2022 when he got hired. So who are the top candidates? Let's start off with the one that is the most obvious and everyone wants to talk about. But beforehand, I want to tell you about some that I'm excluding really fast. In the SEC, I don't think that there's any job that right now somebody is sitting in that they're going to go ahead and say, I want to head down to the Plains. So no Lane Kiffin, no Eli Drinkowitz, no Clark Lee. I don't think any of those guys are legit options to go in place of Auburn. The fourth thing that I want to throw out here, I actually would have considered if he just didn't sign an extension. That's Rhett Lashlee at SMU. If you would have told me that Rhett Lashlee would turn down Arkansas for SMU, I would not be shocked, especially with the stats of that program. If you would have told me before the contract extension was signed on the dotted line that he would leave SMU for Auburn, I could see that. I absolutely could. He coached at Auburn. He has good ties to Auburn. He understands the lay of the land when it comes to quarterback development. It's a major thing with the offensive personnel structure. But I think that that new contract that he has signed is going to keep him out in Dallas for a little while. Now, with that being said, let's move on to the first candidate and the obvious one. It's Jon Sumrall. And I do think that this would be a home run hire. Look at the track record of him, not only as a coach, but also as a program builder. He took over down in Troy. When he was at Troy, he won back-to-back Sun Belt titles. That is challenging in its own standpoint. For what you know about the Troy job, how challenging it is to go ahead and land the right recruits and be able to reconstruct your roster. And then after you lose all those players to the transfer portal, you hit reset once again and you're able to get the job done. That is proven track record. And he's been doing it at Tulane the last 2 years, truly reinventing the way that the offense looks, truly changing the way that we see the defense. There's so many different things that when you look at what a guy like Jon Sumrall is, who also comes from a no-nonsense background and grew up in the state, that is kind of what you want to get back to. The physicality, we understand we are following one specific order, track line record, definitely fits the mold of what we need to be a proven team. And I think that he is going to be a really good coach in the SEC, and he's going to be coaching in the SEC this time next year. Will it be in Fayetteville? Will it be in Lexington? Could it be in Baton Rouge? Well, if it's good enough to go to those schools, it should definitely be good enough to go to the Plains. And this is somebody who I think has shown you, because of the way that he has been able to balance the pecking order of a G5 roster construction, how to work transfer portal numbers, how to work recruiting numbers, and how to just play with physicality and heart. That's something that is just either coachable or not. And you see that with Jon Sumrall. But I know some of you are going to be saying, well, Cole, that feels like such an easy pick. He's 38-11, he's got ties to the state, former SEC coordinator, probably a little bit too on the nose, right? Sometimes intuition just says you should go make that higher. But let's say you don't want to go that way. If you want to go for the swing home run, I think Brent Key is your guy. Now, Brent Key is in a very good situation down in Georgia Tech, his alma mater. He currently has the Yellow Jackets fighting for a college football playoff bid. On top of that, they feel like that they're an offense that's hitting its stride at the right time. They're landing the right recruits. They're getting more money in via NIL. So there's going to be a lot of things that would tempt a guy like Brent Key to turn down Auburn and say, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And he very well might be. But the thing about a guy like Brent Key, look at the way his offense is run. Do you know something about it? Very similar to Hugh Freeze. Oh, wait, it's what Hugh Freeze envisioned Auburn's offense to be, and it never was able to get off the ground. That's what Brent Key is doing. He's a former offensive lineman who understands the lay of the land in the SEC because he coached underneath Nick Saban at Alabama. He understands the entire Southeastern region for spending most of his coaching career out in Florida. He's also a guy that has shown you to develop trench play is essential for his roster. It's why Haynes King is kicking ass every single week. It's why Jamal Haynes is making plays. It's why Rutherford's making plays. It's why you're watching the ability of pass protection to be at an all-time high, something that was very prominent with Auburn when Pat Dye was the head coach. Like, this is the type of dude that if you want to reincarnate that version of the offense that you thought Hugh Freeze was going to bring on in from Liberty, he's the dude to do that. And that's kind of where Auburn has been at its best over the years. Mobility at the quarterback position, being able to work to the outside and get running backs involved, and physicality in the trenches. Like, that screams Brent Key. But again, he's at his alma mater, so he may not want to turn down a job to where he knows he's going to get paid, meet realistic expectations, and also bring prominence back to the school that turned him into the coach that he is today. I mean, like, that's just a kind of big selling point. So he may turn you down. You know who wouldn't probably turn you down? Ryan Silverfield at Memphis. And now we got to go to some G5 coaches. We'll get some other names first. But Silverfield is probably the front runner for the Arkansas job. And I know that a lot of people will say, well, the G5 coaches probably aren't that prominent. To me, the big thing is that why would you not want to go after a guy like Ryan Silverfield? Currently, over his last, if I'm not mistaken, 3 years, he's 29-6. He's going to be back-to-back 10-win season coaching down in Memphis. Memphis also is the favorite to be the G5 representative at the current moment in the college football playoff. They face off against Jon Sumrall on Friday night. There's a lot of things to look at from the offensive structure standpoint to say this is what was missing the last few years. And there's a proof of concept because of multiple players have gone off to the transfer portal or graduated and gone pro underneath Ryan Silverfield. And on top of that, multiple coaches have gone off to have stellar careers when they leave Memphis, and he replaces them overnight. So the construction of not just the coaching staff is really prominent, but also the ability to retain and reassess a talent evaluation, working with different quarterbacks, massive for a guy like Ryan Silverfield. He's definitely going to be in the SEC next year, according to my people, and I think it would be a really good fit if you were to not get Jon Sumrall. If he went to like LSU or something like that, pretty good way to pivot. And then you got to pivot once again. Alex Golesh should 100% be at least a phone call. I don't know if he would be the first phone call I'd make, but I definitely would not say no to him. Look at the way that his offense has been able to transpire and turn things around over the last several weeks. They have been on point. And that's something that I think is a major testament to not only his style of coaching, but also the adaptability of what really worked with a guy like Josh Heupel, and then was able to kind of reinvent it in his own way. Like, you got to remember, he was the key and kind of the mastermind behind closed doors, working alongside with Hendon Hooker and that deep vertical passing attack downfield. And then he went down to South Florida and fixed a few things and said, these are things that I didn't like that Heupel ran. I'm going to turn it into my offense. And we've been able to put up massive points because of it. He's always got good defensive players. He knows how to retain talent. Byron Brown could have easily gone to a Power 4 school last year. And there's buy-in from the coaching staff, which again is another major element I think that you would need to go bring into a place like Auburn. So it feels like a very smart hire, safe hire if you were to miss out on some other guys. Swing big, naturally, but there could be a lot of other names out there that you probably are not looking at. I understand the drawback of not going with a G5 head coach because of how we just went G5 back-to-back years to Brian Harsin and then Hugh Freeze. But I do want to throw one other name out there for a G5 job. And that's Eric Morris, North Texas. Now, a lot of you are probably saying, we don't need a G5 head coach, Cole. We don't need that guy. And I get it. I do. But let me also remind you that North Texas right now is the number 2 scoring offense in college football. They currently have a top 10 passing offense, top 10 in total yards, top 10 in third down conversion. And if that was enough for you, they are scoring at 81% in red zone efficiency. They do everything that you wanted Auburn to be with this cast of characters. And they are the most slept on group of 5 school in America. Nobody brings them up in conversations of being a legit threat to go to the college football playoff. And they still are very much in the hunt. Like, they have one loss, and it's to South Florida. That's it. The offense is humming underneath the guy who not only developed Cam Ward and turned him into a prominent success story, but also made sure that John Mateer came on over to Pullman, Washington before he hightailed it down Denton. So you look at all these things and you say to yourself, we need somebody with an offensive background. Okay, he checks that box. We need somebody who can develop quarterbacks. All right, he checks that box with Drew Messmaker. We need somebody who can score a lot of points. Okay, we can check that box. And somebody who's going to lay off the defense because of maybe we want to keep DJ Durkin around. Figures like a pretty safe hire to me in that standpoint. So he should definitely be in the running. And I think that James Franklin should be in the running too. Now, a lot of you are probably rolling your eyes and saying, why the hell would we consider James Franklin? He just got fired from being out of Penn State. So you mean to tell me that at Auburn, a place that you have not found consistent success since really the days of Tommy Tuberville, that you don't want to bring in a coach that's guaranteed to get you to 9+ wins every single year, compete every once in a blue moon for a college football playoff berth, and depending on where you are when it comes to the pathway to the postseason, you may end up going to the semifinals, better yet, maybe win a national title. Like, you really mean to tell me that based off of what you saw in State College and what you've seen currently over the last decade plus down on the plains, you wouldn't take that type of results year in and year out where you're not losing to inferior competition, you're not having the self-inflicted wounds, you're not putting yourself in a position to where you constantly are paying buyouts after buyouts after buyouts for coaches? And Franklin wants to coach. He very much wants to get into the game, and I can tell you what, he'll settle for Virginia Tech. He'll listen to Arkansas. He will take Auburn, and he will take Auburn to a place to where at least you know, hey, we're going to be better off because of it. May not win you a national title, but you certainly will have the results that say we put the money where our mouth is, we're seeing progress, and we're putting ourselves in a position where every 3 or 4 years we're competing for an SEC title. So I think James Franklin 100% should be a phone call. And I think that you could also go a coordinator route. Now, the coordinator routes are really kind of hit and miss kind of feel for me, but I am going to say 2 names I think would make a lot of sense. The first one is Will Stein out in Oregon. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of who is going to get Will Stein to become their next head coach. That's kind of it. He's had 3 years to be able to develop an offense that now has worked with 3 different quarterbacks, and 2 of which have gone off to play, be in not only the NFL, but also in New York City for the Heisman Trophy presentation. He's led his team to a college football playoff appearance, and the offense is still humming as per usual going into this year with Dante Moore. He's going to be a coach that people are targeting. So if it's good enough for schools like, let's say, Kentucky or Arkansas, should be good enough for you. And might I remind you that while Kenny Dillingham was the one to start getting Bo Nix into a position where things trended upward, you also got to remind yourself that it was really Will Stein who was able to get him to a Heisman Trophy playing level. So I'm just saying, there's an opportunity for where you look at the current coaching staffs around college football. They all had to start somewhere. And some of the biggest names currently in the sport right now started off as coordinators, got these major jobs, and turned it into a place of success. Kirby Smart, when he was at Alabama, went to Georgia, turned it into what it is today. Dan Lanning at Georgia turned Oregon into what it is today. I mean, you look at Brent Venables, what he was able to do, turning Oklahoma into what it is today. There's a reason to believe that maybe it could be the exact same thing for a guy like Will Stein. And the same thing could be said for Glenn Schumann. Now, Schumann's a guy that I think is very picky on where he wants to go next. I can completely understand that. You got it made at a place like Georgia where you're working alongside and calling shots along with Kirby. But it's a power forward job in the SEC where the defense has talent. It's been the reason why Auburn's been in every game. And you come on in and say, I'm going to make you better than what you were underneath a really good coaching staff already. And you retain so much talent. You know people across the college football landscape that absolutely would be able to want to come join your staff. And I think that you would be so hands-off on the offense that there wouldn't be a million voices going in between the quarterback's head on what to do. And that could be a pretty good tone setter. Physicality, trusting of your environment, understanding the lay of the land of college football. Glenn Schumann checks off a lot of boxes. The only thing that he doesn't check off is that he's a defensive coach and should be an offensive coach. 3 more names I'm going to throw out there. These are dark shots, but still names I would consider. Jeff Brohm is very happy at a place like his alma mater in Louisville. But that offense is a reason why we have talking about Louisville as a legit threat to go to the college football playoff. And he's done more with less throughout his entire career. 2 Conference USA titles at Western Kentucky. Then he won a Big Ten West title and won multiple top 10 games at Purdue. That's challenging in itself. They're averaging 9 wins at Louisville underneath Jeff Brohm in the last 2+ years. They have a top 10 win every single season that he has been there, and they play in a conference championship. If you think that offense needs to be the solution to your problem with a ground and pound rushing attack, but the factor of trusting your RPO system and the quarterback to be able to make plays on a drop of a hat, that's Jeff Brohm. That's what you want. You pay a lot of money, but you probably get the results for it. And a lot of you are talking about him as the most underrated coach in college football. At the most underrated job in college football, when it's humming at the right time, doesn't seem like a pretty good fit. And the same thing goes for Fran Brown. Fran Brown's going to become a head coach in the SEC eventually if he wants it. The program development that we have seen over the last year and a half at Syracuse does speak incredible volume to his success rate. And the fact that he's able to bring at least names to the table and the overall understanding and dialect of how he coaches is really, really promising in my opinion. So it does feel like that it may end up being an underwhelming hire right now, but when you look at what he's been able to accomplish over the last year and a half and the way that he's able to rally the troops and how highly regarded he is in the eyes of Kirby Smart, knowing that you have a rivalry that is never going to go away with Georgia, don't you want to have a guy that can get you the results and understands how to get inside of Kirby's head? Like, he's probably, in my opinion, the most slept on coach in college football right now. And I feel like that's somebody who, from a culture standpoint, and won't take any nonsense and needs to be a voice that actually is able to speak on up and say what's on his mind, needs to be out on the plains. I'll tell you what, if I was Georgia, if I was Alabama, if I was Tennessee, I'd be shaking my boots a little bit going up against a guy like Fran Brown because the man is a psychopath that needs to be able to be in his right element. And the final name I'll throw out there, it's one that I consider a dark horse and I would absolutely hire at another SEC school, and he may end up being my favorite pick to go there. But I look at Charles Huff at Southern Miss, and I say to myself, this is somebody who was able to turn a program that was the laughingstock of the Sun Belt and make them a threat to win the conference title. You guys realize that last season, after winning at Marshall, getting them a Sun Belt title, immediately took the job at the worst school in the Sun Belt. And currently, they're sitting at 6-2. Not only that, they're 4-0 in conference play. He went 32-20 during his tenure when he was at Marshall, another challenging place to recruit. He has experience coaching at Mississippi State, at Alabama, and if I'm not mistaken, there was one other school in the SEC they spent a little bit of time with. I believe it was Vanderbilt. Yeah. He comes from the Nick Saban coaching tree, and he understands recruiting because that was his main source of income when he was down in Tuscaloosa. And he's proven he can win in multiple different locations with a roster that followed him from Huntington, West Virginia, down to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. You want to talk about culture being such a big deal? Look at what Charles Huff is creating in a new culture at a school that is only known for losing. I'm just saying, if everything else fails, this feels like a guy that absolutely should at least get a phone call, because he's probably going to get one from one or two SEC schools. Might as well make it one for you. But those are the names that I'd be looking at if I was Auburn. I definitely think that one of them is going to be the name that we see eventually replace Hugh Freeze down in the Plains and hopefully brings the Tigers back to prominence. All right, before we get on out of here, let me tell you about my friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel.com/SECU is the perfect place to sign on up. Bet on who is going to be Auburn's next head coach. You go ahead and win that bet, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets. And that's a great thing for the holiday season. That's a great thing for bowl season. That's a great thing to start off the new year or close this year out on a high note. And I can promise you this, Auburn fans, you really want to close your year out on a high note. So go check it out at FanDuel.com/SECU. Make sure you like the video, hit the ring notification. Let me know in the comment section below, who would you like to see as Auburn's next head coach in 2026? Download the podcast version of the show and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. Until next time, folks, I am Cole Thompson. War Eagle Nation, this is actually a good thing. And I think the coach that you do end up landing should be better than the last one, because it probably couldn't get any worse. Bye.